Hello everyone, welcome back to another book cover design video. My name is Mandi Lynn. I am a book cover designer, and today I'm showing you the time lapse for the design of the special edition set of the Stolen Kingdom series that I made for Bethany Atazeta. She just released this last week, so super exciting, and it's very different from my typical cover design. We were going for more of a classic storybook vibe, and I think we succeeded. So this is just the time lapse of it. A lot of this cover design was taking vectors that someone else had made, like their stock vectors, and I bring them into Photoshop because that's just where I'm most comfortable. Some people might prefer to design a cover like this in Adobe Illustrator, but I'm not a huge fan of Illustrator just because I don't use it as much as I should, but I really like Photoshop, so I just brought the vectors into Photoshop instead. And basically I would just drag and drop the vectors in, rearrange them. Here you can see me rearranging the title because we had to change it from the Stolen Kingdom to the Stolen Kingdom series, and also in some way, shape, or form iterate that this is books 1 through 4 of the series. Now, I started off the cover design process by just doing just the front, because, you know, before we can move on to the spine and the back of the book, we had to really get a feel for what the front of the book was going to be. So that meant figuring out where the title could go, how big the title should be, because frankly, when it came to this type of design, the title is not a super important element. Really, it's all about elegance, so you want the title in there, obviously, but you also want it to match everything else. So we had to make sure that the fonts matched the design and that the design was symmetrical, and it was really just a lot of playing around with things. It was less about technique and more about balance. Balance was the huge thing in this design. Now, fun fact, if you've already seen this book cover, then you know that the castle that's on it right now is not the castle that ends up in the final version. So you'll see me later switch out for a different castle. Now, the castle that's currently on the cover is just like a stock vector, because I just wanted to see how it would look, but I kind of knew I wasn't in love with it, but I wanted to give Bethany the option of 2 different castles, so that's why this one's in there right now. Now you can see me starting to make the rest of the design for the front cover. I started with the focal point, which was the castle, of course, and then I wanted to make sure I knew where the text was gonna go, and now from here I'm just kind of filling in the space, and it was really, like I said, just a matter of making sure that everything was symmetrical. Now, at this point, I'm playing with the embossing that was used on everything because I knew that, you know, this cover is, in essence, it's going to be a very simple cover. Like, there's not a whole lot going on design-wise, but I knew I wanted it to be visually appealing, and the way I did that was by doing an embossing effect. So I started off with this very hard metal look, and then I just modified it until it looked more like foil. Now, when you're an indie author, you work with print-on-demand companies, and as of right now at least, you don't have the option to do any sort of embossing or foils on your cover. So it is fun that when you can't do that, to kind of get the effect anyways, Now, to create the final castle that was used for the book cover, I actually took the castle that was on the cover of the Stolen Kingdom, like the first book in the series, and I brought it into Procreate, which is a software that I prefer to use when I'm doing digital drawings, and I just traced the castle. And this took a surprising amount of time, and I wasn't sure if it was even gonna look good, but I'm so glad we ended up doing it because it looks perfect, and it really just makes it cohesive because it does match the hardcover edition of the first book in the series. So once I finished drawing it in Procreate, I just exported it as a PNG and drag and dropped it into Photoshop, and obviously we ended up going with this castle. Later on, I do end up modifying the castle, or not the castle, but actually I gave it, you know, something to sit on. It was sitting on land surrounded by trees rather than just a castle that was floating out of nowhere. So here you see me modifying the back of the book to kind of make it the mirror image of the front of the book, but without all the rest of the extra designs. We did end up adding the castle to the back of the book later on, which you will see, but the idea was to have the back be just as pretty as the front, but just without the information like the title and the author. Now, creating the spine of the book was a whole nother beast. It was really just wrestling with these stupid lines. I can't tell you how much of a pain these lines were to create. Just, again, making sure everything's symmetrical, that the spacing is good, all of that. It ended up being so beautiful at the end. And you'll see me at first when I designed this wrap, I left these boxes and I just left them blank because me and Bethany, we knew we wanted like little Easter eggs to be in those boxes. Like there's 4 different boxes, one for each book. And the idea is that we wanted to go back and add icons that would match each book in the series. So I just kind of left this as a filler at first because I wanted to see if Bethany even liked the design. And then if she did like the design, then we could modify those boxes to make them fit the different icons that we would create later down the line. And because Bethany loved it so much, we did go ahead and create those icons. We did end up creating a few different versions of the icons. You can see me going in and creating the initial versions, and then I kind of go in again and make them a little bolder because the first time we put them in, the lines were just too thin and they didn't match the rest of the illustrations on the cover. So I would just go in and make it bolder and the lines thicker so it would pop more and match. And in case you didn't know already, the lamp is for the first book, The Stolen Kingdom. The key is for the second book, The Ginny Key. The dragon is for the third book, The Cursed Hunter. And the crown is for the final book, The Enchanted Crown. So here we have me just bringing in the new edition of the castle, which is just the castle surrounded by trees, so it doesn't look like it's floating. And then this is me bringing in the first editions of the icons that I designed. Like I said, you might be able to see here that their lines on them are just too thin and they don't match everything else. So that is why I did go ahead and make them bolder later on. From there, it was just a matter of modifying the spine. Like once we figured out the front and back cover pretty quickly, and then the real work was the spine and making it symmetrical, making all the lines even, making it all match. So I just spent a lot of time playing around with the spine and moving lines around and the different decorative elements around until it looked balanced, because up until the last minute it wasn't quite as balanced as I wanted it to be, but now that it's done, I am super happy with the result. So here's what the wrap looks like. I'm super happy with the result. That is it for today's video. If you want additional content, be sure to join as a YouTube member. You can find the links in my description bar. Otherwise, that is it for today. I will see you guys all next week.